Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about our last major topic of the year, and that is the Reconstruction. This is life after the Civil War. Like I said, this is the last new PowerPoint of the year. Next week is our last week with a lesson, and you guys will have an overview project kind of thing to do that covers the whole year. But today we'll go through the Reconstruction, so here we go. What is Reconstruction? Reconstruction during this time is how the South was destroyed by the Civil War. All the war that happened, buildings are destroyed, whole cities and towns are destroyed, people don't have houses, things like that. So we need to rebuild the South. Also, not just physically rebuild, but we also need to repair like repair the relationships between the people in the North and the South. So this whole period is called Reconstruction, where we are literally and figuratively rebuilding the South, bringing the South back into the United States, and making us back to one whole country. So what are some questions we'll cover? How does the U.S. bring the South back into the Union? Do we just punish them, or do we just let them back in? How to rebuild the South after the war, and how to get the newly black people that are now free into society. So as we should know from last week in the Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves are free. During the Reconstruction, we're going to talk about three new amendments. The 13th Amendment says that slavery is illegal forever in the United States. So with that, the new 13th Amendment, we have freedom for all slaves. Slavery is illegal from here on out. To bring the South back into the Union, there are two different plans. One is Lincoln's blanket plan. Essentially, Abraham Lincoln just wanted to get the South back into the Union, so he wanted to forgive them with very little punishments. We consider this very generous. It was very easygoing. And what would happen is each state in the South, only about 10% of their population would have to swear their loyalty to the United States. They would sign a contract, say we would be with the United States, and that state would come back into the Union and leave the Confederacy. So if you think about that, if there's 100 people, that's only 10 out of the 100 people you need in. That's not that much of the population, and this was very easy going. The Republicans really didn't like this. Other Republicans, remember Abraham Lincoln is Republican, but they also think that they want to start to punish and be more strict to the South so they don't do something like this again. You're going to have these people called radical Republicans, and they're going to try to make it much harder or much more harsh for people to get back in. So 50% of those states must swear their loyalty compared to 10 with Lincoln's plan. And then if there was any Confederate soldiers, they would never have the right to vote. So that would really hurt them. All in all, the South will accept the 13th Amendment and they will end slavery, but they will pass these things called black codes, which we'll talk about here. So black codes are pretty much rules created in the South that wouldn't allow black people to do certain things. It would take away their rights. If you ever heard of these things called Jim Crow laws, these are laws in the South in the 1960s that wouldn't allow African Americans to eat in certain restaurants. They can't go to the same schools, things like that. These black codes are very similar, and it's going to make it very difficult for African Americans in the South to exist. All right, it's not slavery, but it's still keeping African Americans down. So what were some things? Black people cannot own guns, they could not vote, and they could not serve on juries. So all these things would really hurt them if it comes to voting. Anything in the South, the former Confederate people would probably still try to vote, and they wouldn't allow the African Americans to vote, so the African Americans wouldn't have a say in how life is. Also, if you can't serve on juries, that means anytime there's something that goes to court, more than likely the white people will help out the white people and they will hurt the newly freed slaves. Because of this, there's going to be a group of people that are going to create a company, not a company, but a group called the Freedmen's Bureau. And this is a group of people that are helping the newly emancipated or freed slaves. They help give them clothing, education, and job training so that they can try to get back into society, or not get back, get into society for the first time successfully. Also at the same time, now that the former plantation owners have all this land, they don't really want to pay for people to farm their land. Like they don't want to hire workers. So what they do is they end up doing this thing called sharecropping. What the former plantation owners are going to do is they're going to rent parts of their plantation to the black newly freed slaves. So at first it looks pretty good because now these slaves, former slaves, can start to grow their own crops and sell their own crops to make money. However, the rent on that land was so high that all the profits that the slaves would get would go right back to the plantation owner. So they're not making any money, and in fact, they're getting even more debt to the plantation owner. So essentially, this is a new way of slavery without calling it slavery. You're legally giving people land, but they're not growing enough crops to pay for the land, so then they're going to fall into debt, and it's going to become a problem. And so sharecropping was a huge problem for the former slaves in the South. Also during this time, you're going to have a group of people that are created called the Ku Klux Klan, or if you guys have ever heard of the KKK. This is created by Nathaniel Bedford Forrest. He was a former Confederate soldier and general. And it's a secret society of white people in the South, once again, trying to keep the black people down. They did this by doing a multitude of things, including burning crosses to scare them, or even going as exaggerative as lynching or hanging black people in public. And they're going to cause problems in the South for quite some time. Some of the tactics they would do is they would go to the Republican meetings. Remember, Republicans at this time are against slavery and they want to help free slaves. They're going to break up those meetings. They're going to harass the people who are working on the Freedmen's Bureau that we just talked about, the people that are helping out the former slaves. And they're going to burn homes, churches, and schools of slaves and of abolitionists or people that are helping out the former slaves. This kept Republicans, white and black, from voting as well. If there was a voting booth, the KKK would go and pretty much block any black or white person that is a Republican from voting, which is really going to screw things up. In 1871, which is a little bit down the road, there is a Ku Klux Klan Act, and this outlaws all activities of the Klan, makes it illegal, and makes it a federal offense if you are part of it. But the thing about this is you're in the South, and a lot of the people in the South that are white are going to be part of the KKK, and they're a secret society and they don't really talk. So it's going to be really hard to prove who is doing certain things because they are masked up. They're behind white robes and you can't see their face. So really this is hard to arrest anyone involved with the KKK. Lincoln's going to get elected shortly after or shortly before the end of the Civil War. So this is kind of going back a little bit, sorry. But he's saying that the war is over and it's time to heal the nation. In his second inaugural address, he's like, this is pretty much the end of the war. He's like, the war is over. Time to heal the nation. We need to bring everyone back together. That's why he was all about that 10% swearing loyalty instead of the 50%. He was just trying to get the country back together. Shortly after the end of the Civil War, like within days, Abraham Lincoln is going to go to a play, and he's going to be assassinated by a guy named John Wilkes Booth. Booth is an actor. He pretty much hangs out around this theater where Lincoln's at. He sneaks up behind Lincoln and shoots him in the back of the head. We will get a new president, that is Andrew Johnson. He's going to kind of follow Lincoln's footsteps. He doesn't want to go super radical, but he's going to also try and keep up with the Republicans and help them out. The people that killed Lincoln are all going to be hanged or hung. These are the conspirators. But remember, John Wilkes Booth is the main dude who is responsible for killing him. Another amendment is going to be created, that is the 14th Amendment. And this is going to grant citizenship to all African Americans born or naturalized, meaning born in other countries, in the United States. If you remember last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Dred Scott decision and pretty much said that all black people are not citizens, therefore they don't have a right to sue anyone. But Dred Scott didn't have that right. This pretty much vacates that ruling, by the Supreme Court, and it says that all black people in the United States are citizens if they were born there or they become naturalized, meaning they go through the processes. President Johnson, the guy who was Lincoln's vice president, is going to start to veto every policy, and then Congress quickly overrides his vetoes. Remember, he's trying to be with Lincoln, but Congress at this time is kind of like they want to be radical Republicans. They want to punish the South, or they want to punish the South. Johnson doesn't want to do that. He wants to do what Lincoln was doing and kind of help out the South. But Congress can override his veto because they can get enough votes, and eventually they're going to charge him with a crime, which is impeachment. As you remember from the beginning of the year, Donald Trump was impeached. Does that mean he would stop becoming president? No, he was just charged with a crime, and then Congress has like a trial to figure out if he's guilty or not. In the end, he was one vote. Johnson was one vote shy of being removed from office, so he was allowed to continue his presidency. But this is the first time a president will be impeached in the United States. Ulysses S. Grant, remember, he was the lead general of the Union Army. He will be the next president after Johnson, and he really supports Lincoln's views. He's more with Lincoln than Johnson. And under that time, they're going to create the 15th Amendment, which says that all African Americans, or actually not all African Americans, anyone on the account of race, color, or previous servitude, meaning if they were a slave or not, could vote, as long as you were 18 and you were a citizen of the United States. So anyone over the age of 18 can now vote as long as you're a citizen. So we went through different amendments. The easiest way for me to remember the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment is saying free citizens vote. Free citizens vote. 13th Amendment, all former slaves are free. 14th Amendment, all African Americans can become citizens, and 15th Amendment allows everyone over the age of 18 to vote, particularly focusing on former slaves. There's also going to be a group of people called the carpetbaggers. They're from the north, and they're going to start to move in the south. What they're going to try to do in the south is get more population down in the south so that they can override other people in the South's votes and try and take over some power from southern states and give it back to the north. Republicans start to move back down into the South. All former Confederate states eventually will join the Union. Republicans, which would be Abraham Lincoln's political party against slavery, are going to start to take more political power because of those carpetbaggers. And remember, the Republicans are now going to include slaves, Northerners, and poor white folk in the South. And they're going to start to overrun the people in the South that were Democrats and they were for like slavery and things like that. African Americans eventually are going to start to get educated. Many who lived in the North fought with the Army, remember. And then there's going to be a guy, I know it's kind of blocked with my picture, but his name is Hiram Rhodes Revels. He's going to be the first black U.S. Senator to be elected. So as you can see in the 1870s, and as you keep moving on past the Civil War and during Reconstruction, you're going to start to see African Americans get involved in politics. The South really is against all this. They do not want people like Hiram Rhodes Revels in power. And they're going to start to be against the carpetbaggers and against the Republicans in the South. They're like, you're not from here, you shouldn't have power, you need to go back north. Rutherford B. Hayes is going to run as I believe he's a Democrat. He's supported by most Democrats, and he will be the next president after Grant. So if he's a Democrat, remember Democrats are pretty much anti-abolitionists, and they're like pro-slavery and things like that. Reconstruction will officially end in April of 1877. Hayes removes the troops that were put down in the South, and Southern Democrats start to take control of the South again. They kind of push those carpetbaggers out and get more power again. And then this is just something that you guys will talk about when you're in high school, but as I already addressed, eventually the South will start to create these Jim Crow laws, which will segregate whites from blacks, meaning white people and black people have different things like schools, drinking fountains, restaurants, anything really. As you can see down here, it says separate water fountains, theaters, hotels, restaurants, etc. It says in the Constitution we are separate but equal, and that's really going to be a big problem, and that's when you're going to start to hear about people like Martin Luther King Jr. and other people trying to fight for civil rights movement and get rights for slaves. So I went through this really quickly. I know it's still a long PowerPoint presentation, but I have to cover it. You'll have a few activities to go with this, and then next week you'll have just a project to do. But I just wanted to go through this one more time, and I hope you guys all have a good day. Thank you. Bye.